It's late. The room is bathed in the flickering blue light of the screen. You scroll past the new releases, the award-winning dramas and the urgent documentaries the algorithm begs you to watch. But you don't stop there. You keep scrolling until you find it. That familiar thumbnail, maybe it's The Office, Harry Potter, or an anime you've seen a dozen times. You press play again. A wave of relief hits you, but it's quickly followed by a shadow. Guilt. You feel stagnant, lazy, stuck in a loop while the world races ahead. You wonder, why can't I just watch something new? Here's the truth. It isn't laziness. It is a sophisticated strategy of emotional regulation. In a chaotic world obsessed with the new, your brain isn't stalling, it is seeking safety. Let's deconstruct why. Let's descend into the first layer of the psychological architecture. We call this archetype the comfort seeker. To understand this profile, we have to look at the environment you exist in. The modern world is an assault on the senses. From the moment you wake up to the moment you return to this room, you are bombarded with variables you cannot control. The economy, the traffic, the mood of your boss, the notifications on your phone. It is a relentless stream of unpredictability. The human brain, evolutionarily speaking, equates unpredictability with danger. The unknown is where the predators hide. The unknown is where the anxiety lives. This is where the predictability bias comes into play. When you choose to rewatch a sitcom you know by heart, you are hacking your own nervous system. You aren't watching for the plot, you are watching for the certainty. You know exactly when the joke lands. You know exactly when the awkward moment ends. You know that no matter how much tension arises in the second act, the third act brings resolution. It acts as a digital safety blanket. By engaging with a story where you possess godlike foreknowledge of the events, you manufacture a controlled environment. In a day where you had zero control over your reality, the fiction offers you total control over your emotional state. You aren't bored, you aren't unadventurous, you are just seeking a baseline of safety. You are signaling to your amygdala, the part of your brain responsible for processing fear, that for the next 20 minutes, nothing bad is going to happen. And that is not a weakness, it is a necessary mechanism for calming a hypervigilant mind. Now let's drift deeper to the second archetype, the cognitive rester. Imagine your brain is a battery. Every decision you made today drained that battery. Deciding what to wear, navigating a difficult conversation, reading emails, filtering out the noise of the city, this all consumes what psychologists call cognitive load. By the time you sit down on that couch, your battery is flashing red. You're in a state of decision fatigue. Here is the problem with new content. It is expensive. To watch a new prestige drama or a complex sci-fi series, your brain has to work. You have to learn the names of 10 new characters. You have to map out their relationships. You have to understand the lore of the world, parse the subtext of the dialogue, and make moral judgments about who is good and who is bad. That requires active, high-energy processing. Your brain, sensing its own exhaustion, rejects this. It cannot afford the cost of the new, so it switches to the familiar. Rewatching is the path of least resistance. It allows your mind to enter autopilot mode. Because you already know the structure, you don't need to process the information, you just let it wash over you. It becomes background texture, a visual and auditory wallpaper that requires zero caloric output from your frontal cortex. This is the logic of the cognitive rester. It is a resource management strategy. You are subconsciously prioritizing your mental recovery over your entertainment. You are saying, I do not have the energy to understand a stranger's problems right now, I just need to rest. As we move further into the void, the reasons become less about biology and more about the soul. We encounter the third archetype, the nostalgic anchor. Sometimes the show isn't about the show at all, it's a portal. There's a concept in psychology known as restorative nostalgia, but we can think of it as emotional time travel. When you press play on that specific anime from the late 90s, or that movie you watched every summer as a child, you are not trying to engage with the media. You are trying to engage with a former version of yourself. The media acts as a container for your memories. It holds the atmosphere of a simpler time. Perhaps it takes you back to a time before you had bills to pay, before your first major heartbreak, or before you lost someone you loved. The sounds of the opening theme song trigger a Pavlovian response, flooding your system with the specific neurochemistry of that era in your life. You are visiting the person you used to be. In a life that often feels like it is moving too fast, where your identity is constantly being eroded by the demands of adulthood, the rewatch serves as an anchor. It reminds you of your foundation, validates your history. It says, I am still that person. That part of me still exists. You aren't living in the past. You are visiting it to retrieve something you lost, optimism, innocence, or simply a feeling of being at home. So you can bring it back with you into the present. However, not everyone watches for comfort or rest. Some watch for mastery. This is the fourth archetype, the detail hunter. For this personality, rewatching is a puzzle. The first time you watch a film, you're a passenger. You're swept along by the current of the narrative. But the second, third, or 10th time you watch it, you step out of the river and become the architect. This is driven by analytical curiosity. Since you are no longer worried about what happens next, your attention is freed to focus on how it is happening. You start to notice the things that were invisible before, the subtle acting choice in the background, the foreshadowing in the color of a character's dress, the lighting design that mirrors the protagonist's internal state. There is a profound satisfaction in this deeper level of engagement. It transforms the passive act of consumption into an active act of study. It is the difference between visiting a city as a tourist for a weekend and actually living there for years. The familiarity doesn't breed contempt, it breeds intimacy. You are peeling back the layers of the art form. For the detail hunter, the old content is actually an infinite source of new data, provided you look closely enough. If all of these reasons are valid, psychological, and even healthy, why do we feel the need to apologize for them? Why does that pang of guilt exist? This brings us to the conflict. We live in a culture that fetishizes the new. It is the culture of the upgrade, the update, the premiere. We are taught that optimization is the goal of life. If you aren't consuming new information, you are falling behind. Your stability triggers the insecurity of the hype culture. When you choose to rewatch something old, you are opting out of the rat race of attention. You are essentially saying, I have enough. I am satisfied. In a consumerist society, satisfaction is a dangerous thing. It cannot be monetized. People who are constantly chasing the next trend, the instability of the modern content cycle, often project their anxiety onto those who are grounded. They call it stuck. They call it boring. But in reality, your ability to find joy in what you already have is a superpower. It is a declaration of independence from the algorithm. The contrast is stark. The world demands you run. The replay allows you to stop. So, what is the trap? The trap is not the behavior itself. The trap is your reaction to it. The danger arises when you start to shrink yourself to fit the expectations of others. You start to force yourself to watch things you don't care about just to have something to talk about at the water cooler. You deny your brain the rest it is screaming for because you're afraid of appearing out of the loop. But the irony is this: forcing yourself to consume novelty when you are craving familiarity will only lead to burnout. You will resent the new content and you will fail to get the rest you need. It is a lose-lose scenario. The Greek philosopher Heraclitus famously said, "No man ever steps in the same river twice, for it's not the same river and he's not the same man." This applies to your screen. The movie hasn't changed, but you have. Every time you return to it, you are bringing a new set of experiences, new scars, and new wisdom to the viewing. You are never really watching the same thing twice, so the next time you find yourself hovering over that familiar thumbnail, do not hesitate. Do not apologize. If your mind is asking for peace, give it peace. If it is asking for a memory, give it the memory. The world will still be there, loud and chaotic, when you are done. But for now, it is okay to press play on the past.